Welcome back to part 5. This is the conclusion. As you can see, the hood is fully painted. Came out really good. The black in the middle I think was the right choice. I'm going to go through in this video a bunch of different individual parts. I'm going to put a timestamp in the description covering everything from my final fitment, what I did with the nose in the end because I did readjust everything a little bit, my lights, the rain panel, everything. So here we go. All right, for the paint match, I think they did a really good job. In the sunlight, nighttime outdoors, it looks perfect. The red is almost exact. I would say 98%. I think, like I said, doing the black in the middle was perfect. Now, the tape line is not perfect. There's some little inconsistencies, super minor, but it doesn't matter because I'm actually gonna run an orange stripe, have my pinstriper guy do an orange stripe around the border of the black. That way it looks like my side stripes that have an orange stripe around them. So now what's kind of weird is, like I said, it looks perfect outdoors, but underneath my pure white LED garage lighting, it looks a little darker. It's kind of weird. The headlights and the hood look darker than the nose, but it only looks like that indoors under this lighting. Now I had these headlight covers painted like 15 years ago. So it's, I don't know, it's just something with the repaints are just a little different than factory under this pure white. Let's talk hood struts. Now it's always recommended with the fiberglass hood to get different struts. These are also stabilis like the factory ones, but the factory ones are 50 pounds a piece. These are only 35. Now, the negative to them is they're 3 inches longer, so the hood is really, really vertical. I guess it's not really a negative. Makes it easier to work on the car or more out of the way, but I just want to have that 50 pounds per side of stress when the hood is closed, you know, pushing up on the hood. May have been fine. This seems like it's a really, really thick fiberglass hood. I mean, you can see the thickness of that edge right there. But just in case, I went with those. I found them used on eBay because right now, to buy them brand new, the wait time is 8 weeks. I did do a little more adjusting fitment after I got back from the body shop. I probably should have spent a little more time getting it perfect before I brought it there, but I had basically hood fatigue. I felt like I can do a little better on these front corners and I can do a little better on the front gapping because the one was a little different than the other. And now I think it's absolutely perfect. So I loosened everything up. I got both corners equally down and I was actually able to lower the nose both sides together by sanding a little bit off the nose of the car, which I will cover in the next part with my rub mark. So on my nose, I mentioned before, I have this really bad rub mark. That's from my old hood. I didn't know it was rubbing until much later, so I just put some brush touch-up paint on there. And I adjust the hood, it doesn't rub anymore, but it looks absolutely terrible. The problem area with the new hood, and I see this with the WSQ hood as well, is you can see where this flat spot is, right where it transitions into the curve. So when the hood comes down, it covers up my old rub mark, everything. I'm gonna tape all this off. I have a pneumatic triangle sander, small little bit. With all this taped off, I'm gonna take this edge so this hole is nice and curved and smooth. I want the whole thing to look like where it goes up nice and smooth, where there's no flat spot, and this little lip here where it rubs the new hood is gone. And then I'm gonna, you know, add some filler in the low area from the original damage, prime it, wet sand it, paint it with just regular touch-up spray paint. It's gonna be, of course, it's not gonna look perfect, but I mean, this looks like absolute crap, so what difference does it make? And here is the after of the rub mark. I'm actually surprised how good this came out. I just used Duplicolor touch-up paint, primer, and clear coat. So I used that sander I showed to take off that flat lip. It's more of a nice curve in there so it doesn't rub the hood anymore. And then I did it like, basically I just put a nice curve tape line around. I eyeballed it the best I could, sanded it down. Then I primed it, and then I removed the tape. I moved it about 0.5 millimeter outwards, put a new tape line down, base coat, move the tape outward again, and clear coat. That way you don't have a really thick step. Otherwise you'll see a more pronounced line because 3 paint on top of each other stacked will be worse than, you know, slowly moving that tape line outward. And color match looks good. Again, I'm really surprised. I like how the Pontiac emblem looks in the car and it hides the transition so you don't see the line in the front. You do see a little bit on the side with the hood down, but I am gonna take some sandpaper and just kind of wet sand that line down just a little bit. All right, so if I had to install this hood again, let's say a buddy came and said, hey, help me install this hood. This is what I would do really quickly. Light covers come off. Put the safety catch and the latch on at the very end. Of course, unbolt the struts. That's at the very end as well. Don't put those on yet. On the actual bracket itself, before putting the new hood on, I would slot vertically the hinge there. You drill out the 2 holes that pull these 2 together to 3/8, so that gives you an extra 1/8 of an inch forward, back, up and down. But then also, I would slot the actual hinge vertically so I can drop it further, because you can't get enough drop out of this, at least not with this hood, because eventually the safety catch hits the hood. I would make sure I turned all these bumpers all the way in, or just completely remove that one, and then the other 2. The nose has to be pulled downward with the bracket I show in the other video. You bolt the new hood on, but keep these 2 bolts loose. Don't put them tight yet. And then once you're lower it down very carefully, of course, have some friends watch that you don't catch the hood on this corner here. You can slide it forward, back, left, and right. Get it right to where it needs to be, and then very gently open the hood and tighten those 4 bolts down, and you go from there. And then finally, of course, you have to slowly sand these corners down. Might have to do some work here. You have to remove these pop pins here. Once those pop pins are removed, flat washers underneath, so you can actually raise the angle of these corners up. And you could also pull them inwards a little bit too. And that would get it really close. That's what I would do. I had the extremely detailed 2-part videos in my part 2A and 2B to watch. Okay, here is the rain panel. I took a 2-inch thick aluminum bar, bent it, some pretty complicated bends to get it up in there to make this rain panel. 30 thousandths Lexan. I paint the back side. That way you get this really nice looking mirror finish. Got the Hoodbird off of eBay. And the way I sized this, the rain goes perfectly around the outside of the engine. Doesn't drop on the airbox, doesn't drop on the valve covers or power steering pump or anything. The only problem I had was, because I'm using my hood strut mount attachments here, I didn't want to put any holes into the hood itself. It has a little bit of movement to it. So when you close the hood, it's going to hang down. And I didn't realize that it was actually rubbing my airbox. It took some black off the wing right there. I'm going to have to do a little more buffing on that. That kind of sucks. So what I did, I put some felt Velcro right there. That rests right on the bird. And then this here is called UHMW tape. That was rubbing here. That stuff, it's basically like plastic, but it goes on like tape, and it's incredibly slick. So you put that on, it won't let it rub it anymore. I put some along the top too, and then some more felt in the corners because it was actually rubbing here. I'm going to come up with a new design where this transition here is farther back, and then it'll kind of come and then straight down. And I'll probably have to just drill a couple holes into there just to keep it from dropping down when I close the hood. All right, the negative of the lighting panel when it's on is you can actually see, depending on your angle, you can see the individual LED strips. I got a little LED controller, runs 8 scans. I just have it on this pulsing mode. Everything else is a strobe, but I'm not a strobe person. I'll have to try to come up with a better diffuser, a way of doing this. The problem is there's just not a lot of room, and I'm trying to keep that panel really, really light. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me like it did when I first did it, because usually when it's dark at night, I mean, it's really obvious right now in the garage lighting, you can see them, but it's not that bad in person. I may just leave that. For the night rider light, don't mind all the bug hits in the grills. These grills seem to be bug magnets. For this, I knew it was going to be challenging going into it because the grills don't remove. All my other lights are designed, you install it with the grills out and put those in last. So basically I connected the 2 light bars together with a bracket in between them, and I had to slide them in to this narrow little opening together. Not a lot of room with your hands. It actually was not as bad as I thought it would be. I made this bolt here longer, and then I have a little tab on the night rider light connecting bar. Use a flange nut that secures it down, and then it can't turn up in there because it's pretty tight up in these corners here, and it also rests, it has these bolts behind it. So that worked out fantastic. This light is much taller than my usual. This one's about 2 1/4 inches tall when they're normally about 1.5 inches. 170 LEDs, 30 scans, 10 speeds, Android control. And I had it shaped like a wedge in there. So the air hits it, goes up and over, and then it's far enough back where it's able to flow out the airbox. Let's talk about the one negative. The one negative of the hood is the front nose area and how it fits. So it's really hard to get down your 2 corners because the nose of the hood hits the nose of the car. So I have this where I can barely get a piece of paper in between where it's not rubbing. It's really, really tight. And I shaved down as much as I could on the hood itself, but you don't want it to be too thin. You want to leave a little vertical height there so it doesn't break off, you know, if you're at a mechanic shop and they use this as a handle to slam your hood shut. So that's why I shaved down the nose itself. I had that really ugly rub mark. I took down a bunch, made it nice and smooth, and the paint match came out pretty well. This Pontiac emblem hides the transition a little bit in the front. And I actually really like how that Pontiac emblem looks. But now, so the problem with the hood though is the way I'm pulling down the center of the nose, it pulls down the corners too. That's why on the sides, it pretty much goes straight in, but it looks like the hood is raised in the middle on both sides. There's literally nothing I can do about that. The only way I'd be able to fix that, let's say if I actually cut the nose of the car off all the way around, so like, you know, the whole thing comes up, and then it would be a smooth transition. You wouldn't have this step up of the hood right here, but I'm absolutely not doing that. The step up of the hood doesn't really bother me. I think it's fine. It's a shame. It's almost like this and the WSQ hood need to be slightly redesigned where these are deeper, or this is going to be taller here, so that way it slopes in better, or something different with the way the nose comes down, because having to pull the nose down, shave the nose, shave the hood, just to get these corners down, it shouldn't be that difficult. I feel like it's just slightly off. I think this hood was molded off the WSQ hood. And the WSQ hood, I see people having to, you know, cut down their nose to fit. So that's really the only negative of the entire install. All right, well, that pretty much concludes my 5-part series on the Iroc Motorsports WS-XXX hood. Overall, I'm very happy with it. It is nice to change things up after 20 plus years. I do miss the hood bird, of course, but these vents look pretty badass. They really do. I mean, you catch them at the right angle and they look really cool on this car. It gives it a really aggressive look. Very cool hood, and I've taken it to a bunch of car shows already, and the people that notice it, that know what these cars are, they don't know what came from factory, are really blown away by it, have no idea what it is. So yeah, I hope the other videos helped, the install videos, the pros, cons, you name it. If you have any questions, ask me anytime. I try to respond to everybody. Sometimes I don't get the notification, but I will go back and check from time to time, so it could take a little while. But have a good day, and thanks for watching.